now I've captured all this data. How do I manage it? And if I'm a service provider, how do I take that data and put it in a format that's consumable by my client, by my end user? So does it have intelligence and analytics around it? They're going to make for actionable information as opposed to just a big data dump.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 73. Where can you go to learn about precision data systems? If you ask that question of today's guests, they would say head to Las Vegas. Because there on October 31st, more than 2,000 precision data professionals will converge for the Commercial UAV Expo. Precision data measurement and services represents one of the greatest opportunities for UAS. At this conference, experts will share the latest developments and opportunities for UAS technology in such drone markets as surveying and mapping, civil infrastructure, power and utilities, agriculture, law enforcement, and emergency response. I had the opportunity to speak with Lisa Murray, director of the Expo, and Jeremiah Karpowicz, executive editor. They're here to talk about the Commercial Drone Expo, the benefits of attending the event, and they'll share some insights into the role of UAVs in the precision measurement field. Even if you decide not to attend the Expo, you're going to enjoy learning about this sector of the drone industry. So let's pick up the interview where I asked Lisa and Jeremiah to introduce themselves.
My name's Lisa Murray, and I'm the event director for Commercial UAV Expo, which is one of the events in the technology portfolio at Diversified Communications.
My name is Jeremiah Karpowicz. I'm the executive editor for Commercial UAV News, and Commercial UAV News is kind of the online digital component of the Expo, where we take a lot of what's worked at the Expo and try to bring it online, be able to showcase content and articles from the perspective of the people that are actually using this technology and how it works for them and what kind of return on investment they can get, a lot of the practical issues.
So why don't we just go ahead and jump into the Expo, and Lisa, maybe you can tell us about the Commercial UAV Expo. What is it for someone that's maybe just hearing about it for the first time?
It's a 2.5-day conference and trade show. It's dedicated exclusively to small commercial UAV use. And we have a history of organizing events in the precision measurement sector for laser scanning technologies and aerial survey and things like that. So we tend to focus on drones as another data capture device and the outputs of that and how people actually use the data to change the jobs that they're doing.
Now, when you say we, is that Diversified Communications? Is that what the entity you're talking about when you say we?
Yes.
And what is Diversified Communications?
Diversified Communications is an event organizer, and we have 125 events globally on 5 continents. And Jeremiah and I work specifically in the technology portfolio. So we have an aerial surveying and mapping show called International LiDAR Mapping Forum that takes place in Denver every year. And we have SPAR 3D Conference and Expo, which takes place in Houston. And both of those are about capturing data, whether it's on an aerial platform, a LiDAR platform that's flying on a plane or a helicopter, or perhaps a laser scanner that's mounted on a mobile device. All of these are ways that people who are in the high precision measurement industry capture data and digitize their plants, their surroundings, their assets, whatever that is. So for this market, drones are just another data capture device and another tool in the toolkit.
So that's how the Expo came about, that it was maybe a normal outgrowth of some of the type of information that you were already putting out to the public?
Exactly. We have about 50,000 geospatial professionals in our database, and these are people who read our information online or attend our other events, and they tend to be sort of the high precision measurement industrial applications, so people who need a high degree of accuracy in their data and things like that. It's oil and gas companies and mining companies. It's utilities, process and power, precision mapping, things like that. So we had a pretty good idea of what they needed, and the drones were going to be a very important technology for them. And a lot of them were encouraging us to launch a show that specifically focused on small UAS.
And we're kind of talking about this right now, but maybe you can expand upon it about why this expo is different from the other expos.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a proliferation of shows in the market now, and I think it's probably difficult for attendees sometimes to figure out what's going to be the best fit. But drone use, could be used for a number of things. And obviously, we're not focusing on the B2C applications, such as package delivery or anything like that. But there are other sort of strata in the market, and some shows tend to focus on the prosumer market, which, might be sort of the lower end solutions and using those for things that don't require high precision and a high degree of accuracy. There are other shows that focus on all autonomous vehicles like land, sea, and air. And we just came at it from the point of view that we wanted to focus on UAV, UAS specifically, so nothing in the military, nothing in defense, just the commercial uses. And for us, that's a sweet spot where we already had a lot of experience. So whether that's in the construction market or process power and utilities, civil infrastructure, and even law enforcement and things like that, they use all kinds of data capture devices for crime scene investigations and the surveying and mapping industry. So that was a real comfort zone for us. We already knew what the needs of those people were and how they would want to approach drone integration.
And I think the tracks at the Commercial UAV Expo really personify what the kind of focus that we're trying to create with that, just in terms of, there's a precision agriculture track, there's a power process and utilities track, and the people that are associated with those are ones that are focused specifically on how this technology is impacting that sector. So it's about positioning this content at the conference in a way that makes sense for a farmer, rather than here's a drone and all the different things it can do, which is great. It's fun to talk about possibilities and potential with the technology, but being able to get specific and showcase why and how it makes sense to these specific professionals is something that the expo is really all about.
Sort of the industrial uses of drones. So, and again, they tend to be sometimes risky environments or something where safety could be a real issue, like cell tower inspection or offshore oil platform inspection. Oil and gas companies would use this to fly drones to monitor pipelines to make sure there are no cracks or corrosion, those kinds of uses.
So let's talk a little bit about the content of the expo for those organizations that are wondering if they should attend. What would they get out of it? What are they going to learn if they send somebody to the expo?
Well, we've got a mix of speakers, but we try to balance out as possible having asset owners and end users on the program. So it's another differentiator for us, but what it does for the attendee is that they're actually hearing a peer talk about how they're integrating UAVs, what's working and what the challenges are. And we also have a balance of sort of industry visionaries coming out of the drone sector, like Jonathan Downey from Airware, like Bob Young from Precision Hawk, but we balance that with people from the Department of the Interior and NOAA, talking about how does a large government agency integrate drone technology? How are they using it? And equally on the sort of private commercial sector side, we've got presenters like BP and lots of power and utility companies. How are they using that? And, it's not just about look at the airframe or look at the technology with a lot of features. It talks about what their experience has been and sort of the pain points that are very specific to those sectors.
Are you able to talk about some of the challenges in the precision measurement area now that the expo might address?
Wow, sure. I mean, obviously, keeping up on the regulations and making sure that you're in compliance, that's something everybody needs to know about. basic things such as insurance and liability. These tend to be sort of risk-averse industries, and they're going to be very careful to make sure that they're not doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. So there's a lot of focus on that. And then just in terms of, is this the best tool to be using? Again, these are precision measurement people who are very accustomed to all sorts of data gathering. So is the drone the right tool to be using for this particular project? Or would it make more sense to fly some LiDAR, on a plane? Or, any number of other tools that they have. Everything is done from the perspective of how these people work and how they're going to integrate that data back into the enterprise as well. That's a huge consideration. It's a lot of data.
And then I think that data integration really is a differentiator and something that a lot of the sessions are focused on, because there's just so much, just going out and capturing. You want 10 gigs of data, we can send a drone and gather 10 gigs of data. That capture phase isn't as difficult or involved as it used to be. But figuring out what to do with this data, where it's going to go, who's going to use it, how it's going to influence a decision, when it's going to influence a decision, a lot of these things are issues that companies and individuals are struggling with. So a lot of the presenters are set to talk through those specifics, to lay out how and why this info can make a difference and where it can make a difference.
As a planner, I know that one of the biggest challenges, we can collect a lot of information, but the question is, what do you do with it afterwards, and how do you manage it and get a decision out of it? Does the content get as far as managing big data and handling big data systems?
Yeah, and I think with the advent of any new technology, the beginning is looking at the innovation around the capture device itself. So, drones are amazing, and we start looking at the airframes and the hardware and looking at how they capture, and that's novel, and that's great. But then it very quickly moves on to what you're referring to, Randy, is now I've captured all this data. How do I manage it? And if I'm a service provider, how do I take that data and put it in a format that's consumable by my client, by my end user? So does it have intelligence and analytics around it that are going to make for actionable information as opposed to just a big data dump? That's an issue that the precision measurement industry has been wrestling with for a long time, because laser scanners can create giant point clouds, but unless you're able to manage that data, it's not helpful to you. And again, these people are accustomed to breaking that down to, how do I take that data set and share it with engineering and operations and maintenance, and who else might need a piece of this within the large enterprise?
And it's an issue that comes up for service providers as well, because the concept of a service provider sending up their drone and doing a scan of a field and then going to their client and saying, here's all your data, is just, clients are shooting that out of a cannon, because it means nothing to them. They want a deliverable, something that makes sense for their workflow or for their project. And just getting the data, it just doesn't work.
That's right. Collecting data in itself is not the end goal.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that's what goes back to the specificity of a lot of the different speakers that are lined up, that are able to kind of take the attendees all the way down that funnel, so that it's not just about data gathering and it's not just about processing, but it's about what happens with all this stuff and how does it influence the timetable or our bottom line.
Yeah, maybe you can touch upon some of the speakers so people get an idea of the level and the quality of the people that you're going to have attending the session.
As I said, we've got a bit of a mix in the keynote area. We've got Mark Bathrick from the Department of the Interior, who has been working on a UAV program there for many years and has over 25 years experience in UAS. So that is sort of, again, the end user asset owner talking about their perspective. And the title of his presentation is 4 Key Things that you need to have for commercial UAS integration. And then Dr. Robbie Hood is keynoting, and she is from NOAA. And she actually is going to talk about the very thing we were just talking about, which is large data. How do you take that in and make it actionable? And then we have a panel of sort of drone industry leaders and visionaries: Jonathan Downey from Airware, Bob Young from Precision Hawk, Anil Nanduri from Intel, and Chris Anderson from 3D Robotics. And all of these guys are pretty well known in the industry. They're the pioneers. And frankly, I'm just delighted that they've all agreed to come and share their knowledge with our audience. But they all have a different vision and topic to take us forward. Where do they see the industry going? What's it going to look like? And what's going to be important? So those are the keynotes. And then we have breakout sessions that, as Jeremiah mentioned, are very focused on our verticals. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We're really focused on just 7 key industry segments where we think drone integration is going to be the most successful. So we have everybody from search and rescue people talking about law enforcement and emergency response to actual farmers who own farms talking about how they use UAS. Currently, we've got some of the top ENR firms in construction, like Jacobs Engineering, Bechtel, Skanska, are going to be talking about how the AEC market is using drones right now. We've got mining speakers. Departments of Transportation are going to be talking about roads, bridges, tunnels, and then surveying and mapping. We have a lot of people talking about how surveying and mapping is using UAVs along with other tools right now.
And I know that the FAA regulation isn't as big of a topic now that we have some definition under Part 107, but Hoot Gibson from the FAA is set to speak, as well as Greg McNeil to deliver a regulatory perspective. So while regulation isn't at the top of the list for folks anymore, it's still a priority, and have a lot of speakers that are set to get specific around where things are and where they're headed.
Sounds like you got a pretty good schedule there. A lot of good people on the slate.
There's another one I'm particularly excited about because when I've been to a lot of UAV shows over the last year, what I think people really want to know is, can somebody predict for us what we can expect in the short term and in the long term? So we've got Gerald Van Hoy from Gartner, who is going to be paired up with Colin Snow from Skylogic Research, and they are going to look into their crystal balls as much as you possibly can and give us a market forecast that is grounded in real-world evidence. So there are all kinds of claims out there about how big the industry is going to get, but I think these two guys are going to really be able to lay a path and give people information that's going to help them make decisions about how they're going to integrate drones into their business based on where they see the trends.
Yeah, I think we've all seen those numbers of the billions and billions that are in drones floating out there. There's a number of different lists, but being able to hear from these guys about what actually is there, what's going to be there is going to be key.
That session alone could be a big make it or break it for some decision makers on how they proceed over the next 12 months.
I think we'd all like somebody to lay the way forward. And so, it's designed to do that in the most realistic way possible.
Like many expos, you also have an exhibit hall. Can you talk about what you expect in the exhibit hall and if there's anything new or special you expect to occur there?
We do. I love talking about our exhibitors because I really do believe we have all the best-in-class solutions there. We don't have a lot of low-end solutions. Everything that's in there is really, it's all the leading companies, Aerialtronics from the Netherlands, Airware, Drone Deploy, Precision Hawk, Intel. It's not just the airframes, but it can be sensors and components and amazing software companies like Picus 4D, Autodesk, and Bentley are in there because obviously they have software solutions for the AEC sector and civil infrastructure. SenseFly, Airbus. It's quite the who's who, I think, of drone companies who are exhibiting there. And about 20 of them have told us that they're going to launch new products at the event. And we're actually holding a press event on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, which is going to be like a rapid-fire lightning round of the top 10 launches as selected by our PR firm and some of our advisory board. And so those are things that will be seen for the first time, unveiled at Commercial UAV Expo, and they're really the most innovative products that we think are being launched at the show.
You mentioned the advisory board, and I thought that was really interesting. I haven't seen too many expos that have, or conferences that actually have an advisory board for the conference. Is that normal, or is this unique in that kind of a business?
Is it normal? It's normal for us. We tend to want to make sure that our conference content is really focused on the needs of the industry. So we go out and we select people who are really working on the ground out there. And it tends to be a mix of vendors and asset owners and just sometimes industry experts. And we like them to weigh in. So we do a call for papers. I think we had over 100 submissions. They go through all of that with us, and we decide together what we think is the most important information to go on the program.
So your advisory board is actively involved in the shaping of the agenda and the focus of the conference.
They are. And they also act as ambassadors for the conference, too. They tend to be people who are really invested in moving the technology forward. So they, sometimes they do interviews for us, or they help Jeremiah do the reports that we put together on different industry sectors. They tend to be experts in their particular vertical segment, and we lean heavily on their expertise to make sure that we're understanding what the needs of the end user asset owners are.
I hadn't seen that in many other conferences. I just thought that was a unique way of tapping the industry to make sure you're being responsive as possible.
The perspective that they bring is just really incredible. I mean, if you get on a call with these guys or sit down with them and just rapid fire a few questions, you get enough back. I mean, I think of things in terms of articles. So, when I throw out questions to them, I get so much back. I think I've got enough for 2 or 3 articles. And like Lisa was saying, there's people like Diane Gibbons, who is obviously very involved in the oil and gas. Lewis Graham is on the front line in the surveying and mapping space. Gene Robinson is one of the biggest names in the search and rescue area. And being able to talk with these folks about what they're seeing and what they want to see and what they expect or what's going to happen is just really critical.
When Part 107 came out, it was great to be able to place a call to Greg Walden at Aiken Gump with the Small UAV Coalition and really get his perspective on what that meant for the industry.
Yeah, I can see what that setup provides a great deal of value to the conference. A lot of people go to conferences with the expectation of some type of networking, personal networking or business networking. Are there activities planned in this expo for networking?
Yes, we happen to be in Las Vegas on Halloween, so we are throwing a Halloween happy hour, which is kind of the kickoff, and it may sound like a lot of fun, which it will be, but there's an awful lot of networking that gets done just in that first night. So that's where we open up the exhibit hall. It's kind of the unveiling of the exhibit hall, and attendees come in and walk around to all the booths and get to talk with the vendors and that sort of thing. And then we do have a lot of session time on Tuesday, so we have a reception. We call it Tropicana Tuesday. It's a reception sponsored by Trimble and AeroVironment at the Tropicana on Tuesday evening. Every morning we have networking breakfasts on the exhibit floor, and those are sponsored by Dell Air Tech, which is quite nice. And then we're hosting a Women in Drones lunch on Wednesday. So all throughout the day, attendees have an opportunity to go into the exhibit hall and interact with the exhibitors, but we do have these scheduled events too to sort of get everybody off site in a place where they can just make connections, because I think sometimes it's that random connection that you made with somebody that actually makes the whole conference.
Yep, I agree.
And then those random connections can be so key because of the perspective. I mean, as great as it is to hear from some of the titans in the industry, being able to connect with somebody who's in a similar position as you are and talk through what kind of challenges you're looking at and what solutions you've tried and how troubleshooting is going can really change the approach that somebody might take.
Jeremiah, this question might be more directed to you. And I know that you have a session that's going to be talking about industry trends and sort of what's happening in the future. But based on your own research, what do you think are some of the key issues and challenges and some of the trends that have surfaced that the Expo is geared to focus on?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is that data piece that I know we mentioned. There's just a lot of people that are struggling with that aspect of, I've got all this information now, what do I do with it? Just having 20 gigs of data means nothing. And a lot of the sessions are focused on being able to explain that and explore that. And what one user does isn't necessarily going to be the same as another user that's even in a similar situation or at a similar size. When I was interviewing Young Kim for an article that I put together for the site, I think one of the most interesting things he laid out is about how you can't really treat precision ag as one homogeneous marketplace. And it's something that I'm guilty of, even in terms of my thinking and even in terms of what I write. But I think it's really critical to be able to realize that there's all kinds of different farmers and all kinds of different levels. And what makes sense for one farmer of a certain crop might not make sense for that same type of crop if it's a little bit bigger or in a different part of the country. So being able to explore what actually is working or isn't working is a really big consideration.
Lisa, do you have anything to add?
The only thing that makes me think about is, we've all held out precision ag as sort of the holy grail. And if you look at the numbers, it certainly has a lot of potential. But why haven't farmers or crop consultants integrated UAV technology more? And I think, to Jeremiah's point, the industry is going to have to mature to the point where solutions providers are coming up with a solution that is customized to the end user and really thinking about how the end user is going to use that data. And there are some out there, but it's still really new as a technology. So, do we have the kind of customization we'll see in the future? I don't think so, but I think that's what's going to help people integrate it faster. There'll be interfaces for AEC versus precision ag versus law enforcement because their needs are different.
And I think a lot of the acquisitions and partnerships that we're seeing in the space are moving things towards that area. Obviously, Del Air Tech just acquired Trimble's UAS division, and that's one of the key factors in terms of how things are shaking out, is that Trimble realized that wasn't an area of the market that they wanted to be involved with, so they sent it over to another company that did, and they'll be able to work with them in a very active way to create a solution that's going to be even more powerful, because they're focused on what they do best, and this other company is focused on what they do best to deliver a complete drone solution for their customers.
And I think that one of the things that I'm hearing in the drone industry is, it's not just as simple as buying a drone and then, I'm going to start a survey business now. That's a profession. There are lots of tricks in the trade, and these are people who've been doing this for a very long time in order to deliver the kind of data that they need. So, the needs are different. You need to get the tools for precision measurement that are going to get you what you need, and you probably have to be a trained surveyor to get survey-grade data for certain projects. On the other end, somebody could easily buy a lower-cost scanning device and start doing roofing inspections. There's a huge spectrum of commercial use.
So let's talk about getting to the expo, some of the logistics. Where is it? When is it? The cost of registration? How does somebody go to the expo?
So the expo opens on Halloween, October 31st at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and it runs through November 2nd. A full conference pass is $595, and those are available via registration on our site, which is expouav.com. Registration is still open, so people can do that, and it does go to $695 on site. So if people want to save $100, they would need to register soon.
Yeah. How many people are you expecting this year?
We are looking at somewhere over 2,000. Again, don't have a crystal ball, but we are sure we'll be well over 2,000 people. And the growth has been amazing. I mean, the exhibit floor is 50% larger than it was last year, and we've got some really amazing companies signed up to attend.
What do you hope attendees walk away with after participating in the expo?
Really hoping and expecting that attendees will be able to have some specific ideas around what it means for them to approach a drone program in their organization, whether they're an organization of one or at a company that has locations throughout the world. I think there's going to be some specifics that they'll be able to look at in terms of what type of drone is going to work for me, what type of situation is a drone going to be a fit for. I haven't seen too much of this mentality out there, but I know during the hype cycle it was a drone is all you need to get this job done. You buy a drone and you're set. For the most part, that's kind of died away. But the serious professionals in the space talk about how drones are another tool in the toolkit. They're another option. They're an option for where a manned solution might be too expensive or impractical. And I think attendees are going to be able to get a real understanding of what that means for their circumstance, whether that means it's something that a drone is going to replace something they're doing, come in a different way that they're doing, or it's going to create a different alternative for them. They're going to be able to see and understand how this technology can make an impact for them.
And how do you think the future of the Commercial UAV Expo will evolve?
Well, we're off to a good start. And I think that because we're focusing on just the industry verticals where UAV integration, will be, I think they'll be the largest verticals in terms of growth for commercial UAV integration. So when you're looking at these power users of other data capture technologies, most people seem to think that the high end of the market is where a lot of the growth will eventually be. Now, I think it will be a little bit slower in terms of the initial, trying it out and integrating it. But I think eventually these are the kinds of companies who will buy fleets of drones, who will really integrate this into their whole enterprise system. So hopefully we're on the right track with the focus that we have.
Did we miss anything? Anything that we should have talked about that we didn't?
Maybe one of the things we didn't talk about as much were specifically some of the companies who have signed up to send people. And that's a pretty impressive list, too, because I really don't think that these people are going to multiple drone shows. I think they'll just go to one. And so some of the enterprise leaders that have signed up to send people are BP, Exxon, General Motors, Boeing, San Diego Gas and Electric, AT&T, BNSF Railway, Verizon, Airbus, pretty large companies sending their top technology people to scout out commercial UAV use for them.
And I think they'll be scouting that out in a way that they haven't or weren't able to previously because of FAA regulation. And I can't tell you how many times I heard from folks who were saying that the Section 333 exemption just represented too high of a bar and they couldn't really commit to exploring how they could or would want to use the technology under 333. But with Part 107, it's opened things up, and I think a lot of companies have recognized that, and they're taking a very serious look at what it's going to mean for them to use a drone.
Any last thoughts about the expo and why people should attend?
I'm just really looking forward to connect with some of the people who are out there and using this technology and want to be using it, because being able to talk about reality in terms of this is what's happening and this is what I want to happen is something that I find really interesting and try to turn into articles and content any chance I get. Just being able to talk about that bottom line reality is something that I'm personally focused on, and I know the expo is as well, just because we want to talk about what actually makes a difference.
I think if people go to the website and look at the exhibitor list and the attendee list, that's going to be the best definition of what it is that's happening there and how it's different from other drone shows. I mean, I don't think people have the budgets or the ability to be out of the office at every single event, and I think they have to choose the one that's going to fit best with what their needs are. So we have best-in-class solutions, and we have a very focused conference program, and if it's right for people, they're going to know it when they start looking at that website.
That's it for episode 73 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Lisa Murray and Jeremiah Karpowicz of the Commercial UAV Expo and learning about the precision data industry. I want to thank Lisa and Jeremiah for taking the time to speak with me. If you want more information on the Commercial UAV Expo, especially if you want to attend the conference, check out their website at expouav.com. If you're in this segment of the industry, this expo should be of great value to you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review on iTunes. It really does help. And as always, I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Gores.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.